Welcome to the Movie Spoiler Club, the channel where you can watch movie, television, and streaming series within minutes. Today we're going to spoil the movie Captain America, the First Avenger 2011. The film opens in the middle of a dense snowstorm where some men from Washington are investigating unidentified objects. They enter into a large plane. Inside they discover Captain America's shield. We then cut to a man running down the street. Text appears telling us we are now in Tonsberg, Norway. In March 1942, the man runs into a medieval-looking church. As he closes the door behind him, the building starts vibrating. Before a bulldozer knocks down the wall, a car bearing Hydra insignia follows the bulldozer. An important-looking officer steps out from the car and enters the church. He opens up a grave and removes a blue glowing cube. He drops it on the floor, smashing it to pieces. This shows that it was a fake. He then goes across the room and finds a secret compartment containing the real Tesseract. We are now introduced to Steve Rogers. He is young, short, and skinny. We see him at an army recruitment center volunteering for the war. The man checking his paperwork looks at the form and sees a long list of illnesses and physical shortcomings. He rejects Rogers' application. At the cinema, they are showing a propaganda film about the war. Before the main feature starts, someone in the audience keeps shouting objections, calling on them to start the film. Rogers tells him to shut up. We see Rogers outside in an alleyway with the man, and Rogers is being beat up. Every time he gets knocked down, he pulls himself back up and says, "I can do this all day." A uniformed man comes along and punches the bully, making him run off. This is Rogers' friend, Sergeant James Barnes. He has just got orders that he is dispatching to England. Rogers and his friend go to an event called World of Tomorrow, showcasing possibilities of the future. They meet up with two girls. One of them calls Barnes by his nickname, Bucky. They watch Howard Stark giving a presentation of a flying car. After a few seconds it shorts out and falls back to the ground. Rogers has disappeared when Bucky goes to look for him. He finds him at a pop-up army recruitment tent. Rogers is going to try to enlist again, this time using false details. Bucky tries to talk him out of it, but Rogers insists out of a sense of duty. We see Rogers in an examination room. A nurse enters and whispers something in the doctor's ear, and they both leave. Another man enters the room and introduces himself as Dr. Abraham Erskine. Erskine has evidence that Rogers has already tried to enlist 5 times. Rogers thinks he is in trouble for this, but Erskine is impressed by it and approves his application. In a laboratory built inside a snow-capped mountain, we see Dr. Zola performing experiments on the Tesseract. He is being cautious. The same Hydra officer we saw before is not interested in that and cranks the machine up to 100. The Tesseract stabilizes and Zola says it will change the course of the war. The Hydra officer corrects him and says it will change the course of the world. We see Rogers with a group of other recruits at an army camp. Agent Peggy Carter is inspecting them. One of the troops starts making rude and creepy comments towards her and she punches him, knocking him to the floor. Colonel Chester Phillips starts giving a speech and we see a montage of the recruits training. Rogers is struggling and the others are laughing, making it harder for him. We see them on a run and unit instructor says that the first one who can get the flag from the top of the flagpole can get a lift the rest of the way. Rogers, who was lagging behind in the run, watches the others all try and climb the pole, but they all fail. Unit instructor says no one has been able to do it. As they start to walk away, Rogers walks up to the flagpole, undoes the bolt, making it drop to the floor, picks up the flag and gets in the car. Erskine and Phillips are discussing who should they use for their experiment. Erskine wants Rogers, but Phillips thinks it should be someone strong and brave. He throws a grenade into the crowd of recruits. They all run for cover except Rogers, who dives on the grenade and yells at everyone to get back. He lies on top of it for a moment before everyone realizes it was only a dummy. We see Erskine talking to Rogers the night before he is to be injected with the serum. Erskine explains that both Hitler and Schmidt, the Hydra officer we saw earlier, both wanted to harness occult power. Hitler thought it was a story to inspire and manipulate, but Schmidt really believed it. Schmidt has tried the serum on himself, but Erskine warns that it will enhance the personality of the person from before they were injected, good or bad. Back in the mountain lab, Zola goes to talk to Schmidt. As he enters, Schmidt dims the lights. They are looking at pictures of Erskine and plotting to stop the Allies from being able to use the serum. Rogers and Carter drive through Brooklyn. They enter an antique store, at the back of which there is a secret passage leading to a laboratory. We see that there are a lot of politicians and important people in attendance to see the results. Stark is performing the experiment. He carries out a series of injections into Rogers' major muscles. Then he flips a switch, making a case close around Rogers. A bright blue light shines out and we hear Rogers start screaming in pain. Carter runs down and tells them to shut it off. But we hear Rogers from inside the case saying not to because he can do it. The case opens and we see Rogers is now taller and muscular. Suddenly, someone who was posing as a politician detonates a bomb. Agent Carter chases him. As he runs off, he shoots Erskine. Rogers runs over to him. As he dies, he taps Rogers at his heart. As the bomber tries to escape, Carter shots his driver, but the bomber manages to get into another car. He drives directly at Carter, who aims her gun at him. Rogers pushes her out of the way of the oncoming car. She protests, saying that she had him. Rogers shouts sorry as he continues to chase him. He jumps on top of the car. The bomber gets out of the car and uses a child as a human shield. He then throws the child in the water. Rogers pauses, but the child says he can swim. The bomber jumps into a high-tech submarine-type vehicle, but Rogers manages to pull him out and apprehend him. The bomber says, "Cut off one head. 2 more will take its place," before eating a cyanide pill and killing himself. At a Hydra military base, Schmidt is building weapons with the power of the gods. Several Nazis are there to see his work and think he is mad. They see that his plan to attack enemy capitals includes Berlin, so Schmidt kills them all. Rogers gives a blood sample to try and replicate to experiment they did on him. But without Erskine it could take years. The Strategic Scientific Reserve has decided to take the fight to Hydra. Rogers wants to join them, but they won't allow it. His heroics stopping the bomber are all over the papers. A man offers him a different way to serve his country. Rogers is performing in a song and dance routine dressed as Captain America. He is selling military bonds to help pay for the war effort. He tours the country and gains popularity through comics and films. He then is taken out to perform for the troops. They are unimpressed and throw fruit at him, demanding that the dancing girls are brought out instead. Agent Carter explains to him that the troops have just taken heavy losses fighting Hydra, and those he was performing for were what's left of the 107th Regiment. This was Bucky's regiment, so he rushes off to find out if he is alive. Colonel Phillips says he believes Bucky's name was on the list of condolences. Rogers wants to mount a rescue mission, but the colonel says they are too far behind enemy lines. Rogers prepares to go on his own, but Carter helps him acquire the gear he needs and gets Stark to fly him to Austria, where the prisoners from the 107th are being held. Rogers sneaks through the forest and into Hydra's military base. He manages to find and release all the prisoners, who arm themselves and start fighting their way out. Bucky was not with them, so Rogers keeps looking and eventually finds him strapped to a table in the basement. Schmidt is watching on the monitors and seeing his troops are losing. He then activates a self-destruct mechanism. The base starts to explode. Schmidt and Rogers face off and begin to fight, but Schmidt escapes. As he does so, he pulls off his face, which was only a mask, revealing an entirely red face. The serum he used on himself has turned him into Red Skull. We see Rogers try to jump to safety as the base explodes. Back at the army base, Rogers is being declared killed in action. At that very moment, he marches in with all the prisoners. Rogers is awarded the Medal of Valor, but skips the ceremony to help prepare for the battle against Hydra. He asks if he can put together his own team. We see him in a pub asking some of the prisoners to join him. They agree as long as he buys a round. He then shares a drink with Bucky. Carter arrives and says Stark wants to see him in the morning to try some new equipment. When Rogers goes to meet Stark, the receptionist tells him he will have to wait. She starts flirting with him, then grabs and kisses him. Carter comes to tell him Stark is ready, and is not impressed seeing him kiss the receptionist. Stark shows him a selection of different shields. Rogers is drawn to a plain metallic circular one. He asks Carter what she thinks of it. She aggressively shoots at him, but the shield deflects the bullets. We then see Rogers butt in the Captain America uniform and the shield now painted with red and blue stripes with a star in the middle. There is then a montage of Captain America taking out a series of Hydra bases to the increasing frustration of Red Skull. Rogers and Bucky are on a Hydra train that Zola is working on. As they make their way through the train, Bucky is blown out just as they cross a cliff. Rogers tries to save him but can't reach, and Bucky falls to his death. Zola is apprehended and questioned by Colonel Phillips. He tells him to cooperate as a message has already been sent, saying he has one that they know Red Skull will intercept. Carter finds Rogers drinking alone in a bombed-out bar. He explains that because of the serum, he can't get drunk. Back at the base, they make a plan to attack Red Skull in his base beneath the Alps. Rogers attacks the base single-handedly and gets captured. Red Skull starts beating him and Rogers says, "I can do this all day." At this moment, The rest of the team abseil through the window and start shooting at Red Skull and his associates. Red Skull runs off and Rogers chase him. Red Skull gets on a plane and is about to fly away. Colonel Phillips and Agent Carter arrive in a car, allowing Rogers to continue the chase. He is just about to jump from the car to the plane when Carter kisses him. He then jumps onto one of the landing wheels just as it is being retracted. On the plane, he finds a small bomber plane marked New York. As the small plane is dispatched, Rogers jumps on top of it and manages to wrestle control from the pilot. He then crash lands it back onto the main plane. Rogers confronts Red Skull on the plane and they have an epic battle. Red Skull shoots at Rogers but he deflects it with his shield. The redirected bullet hits and damages the Tesseract machine. Red Skull picks it up and it seemingly destroys him. The Tesseract burns a hole through the plane and falls to the ocean. The plane is still heading towards New York and will destroy the city. Rogers talks to Carter over the radio. He explains that he is going to have to crash the plane into the water to save New York. They talk about going dancing the following week, both knowing he is probably going to die. He crashes the plane into some ice. We see shots of people celebrating Victory Day in London and soldiers drinking to Captain America. Stark recovers the Tesseract from the ocean and keeps looking for Rogers. Rogers wakes up in bed and a nurse comes in. He recognizes the baseball game on the radio as being from 1941. He aggressively demands that the nurse explains what's going on. She hesitates. Security comes in and Rogers smashes a hole in the wall to escape. He runs out onto the streets of modern New York. As he runs around looking confused, Nick Fury shows up and explains that he's been asleep for nearly 70 years. Movie trivia. Do you know that Chris Evans declined the role 3 times before accepting the part? Not out of dislike for the role, but because he feared what the effects of the sudden increase of fame would be on his private life. Then Robert Downey Jr. convinced him to take the part, and thus gained the freedom to sign on any other role he want afterwards. After that, he had a meeting with director Joe Johnston and the producers, who convinced him to take the role. This movie gets the movie rating of 6.9 from IMDb, Tomatometer rating of 80 and audience score of 74 from Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you for watching and be sure to hit like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments section, and hit the notification bell for the new movie spoiler video every week.